Good morning, Adam. How is Toronto?
Toronto is fantastic. It's gorgeous and sunny. How's it there in Vancouver?
Well, yeah, I don't like Vancouver. We're out in Victoria. We're out on the
All right.
leftist of the left coast.
Okay. My apologies.
No, no, it's it's the same as Vancouver. It's kind of gray and misty, sort of. It's a sort of like a German European spring day. You know, you put on the fancy scarves and the suit jackets and ride around on a Dutch bike. That's what you do today.
That's what you do. That
That's what
sounds
we
good.
do. That's how we roll, baby.
Good.
Human-centered design.
Human
You
centered.
have bitten off a topic that is fascinating and huge. And we have half an hour, and I'm very, very curious. And I am sure, because when we talked before, I am sure that the brand DIYers are very curious because this applies so much to the situation they're in. We're in COVID. You have to bring your business online. You have to sell stuff online. How do you avoid screwing it up? Human-centered design is the answer. And then I go, wait a minute, shouldn't everything be human-centered design? Talk
Sure.
to me about what the heck is human-centered design anyway, and why does it need experts? It seems so natural.
Well, sure. Well, let's first start with experts. I read an interesting quote this week that an expert is just somebody who's made all the mistakes one person can make in a very narrow field. I haven't made all the mistakes yet, though I have made many. Um, Human-centered design is really just a conceptual framework for teams to solve problems. It relates to businesses coming online in the sense that we're putting humans and the solving problems for humans and making sure we understand their needs at the center of every decision that we make to solve their problems.
Mhm.
Design thinking, human-centered design, you hear these terms a lot in the industry. I'm going to try and keep it, paint with broad strokes to keep it palatable for people who are new to the concept. But like you said, we really could go down, 100 different rabbit holes. My goal today is really to tell brand DIYers about how important it is to differentiate themselves with a great brand experience. That's not always easy.
Mhm.
One of the things I want to talk about today is the digital Main Street shop here, getting people online. Some of those tools are amazing, so it's never been easier to get online. But what does that mean in terms of controlling the quality of the experience for your business? And there's a couple of things that we can talk about there.
Now, it's funny because just yesterday I sat down with one of my clients who's also a brand DIYer. They have a small, very successful store in Port Moody, BC, and they're on Shopify. Talk to them. Only a small fraction of their business is done through Shopify. Most of it is done bricks and mortar. And when they do Shopify, it's curbside pickup. So they're making a good coin, and they could be making way better coin. But I think, like so many of us, we're standing in front of this thing. Shopify says, create a Shopify website. All your problems will be solved. Facebook says, advertise on Facebook. All your problems will be solved. And then we do it and we go, all my problems aren't solved. So we're standing in front of this thing. We know that we can sell our widgets, our fountain pens, our bubble gum online. We buy a Shopify site, and then we watch as it gathers dust like the exercise bike from last New Year. So, where do we start with this? Well, how?
Well, I would say the very first thing that we have to do as business owners, as advocates for human-centered design, is to do some research, is to truly understand who it is we're trying to serve. So if Port Moody is our primary audience, that's fantastic. Are there people who only want to do pickups? Are there people who want to order and deliver to relatives or as gifts? Understanding each of the contexts in which people are going to use your product, that's really key. And you're going to hear me talk about context a lot. And context is important. We talked a little bit at the start before we were recording about a global reach, because being online does allow us to reach new markets. But those markets are of course going to have different needs. The context is different there for those new markets.
Mhm.
Your clients should take full advantage of the fact that they can do business with everybody. But with every step in the buyer's process, and you're going to hear process talked about a lot, there's another opportunity for friction. You can't control, how the UPS is going to deliver your product. You can't control FedEx. You can't control the demeanor of the people who are dropping off the product. And that's part of being cognizant of the entire experience of your buyer's journey.
So do you advocate, like, one of the primary mistakes that I see people making, that they make up their mind in a flash, myself included, and they jump right away to the tools. Maybe one of the first things that people should do is sit down and think with a piece of paper and a pen and go, all right, I'm a customer. What happens to me from the moment I first see you, to the moment I'm interested, to the moment I'm comparing you with prices, to the moment I perhaps pull out my credit card, then go away, then come back with my credit card, buy something, to the moment I get real excited or buyer's remorse, whatever the case may be, to the moment it arrives, to the moment I get to review it and tell my friends about it. I imagine that core to human-centered design is thinking that stuff through, as opposed to assuming that the technology is going to take care of it for us.
Absolutely. Assume only that it's a terrible process. Assume only that there is something to fix. Assume that the intended audience is not going to understand exactly what it is you want them to do and when you want them to do it. Yeah, by all means, there's a dangerous thing when you're either a hobbyist or you're doing everything yourself. If you're a brand DIYer, you want to take on a lot of that responsibility yourself. So, doing that initial checklist of awareness of my product all the way to using my product or service in point form, in a list, that's where you start. Understanding on different pieces of paper who exactly I'm trying to solve this problem for, and then imagining their journey, because every different market segment, a little bit of jargon for you, every different segment of your audience that we've defined is going to have a different journey, and they're going to have a different interpretation of events through that journey. And having those, more jargon, personas in one place will allow you to make the right messaging decisions, the right branding decisions, the right positioning decisions for those personas along that journey. So, we're jumping ahead to the buyer's process, which is really important. And typically, and as I said, there's a lot of information in this process, and it's very much iterative and cyclical when we're trying to understand our audience. Personas are key, and there are templates for buyer's journey. There are templates for personas, but start with the checklist. Start with the list of, I know my audience is this person. This person has a particular need. In this context, the value that I'm offering them as a business is this. And have that on one piece of paper, and then do a journey for them. Take another piece of paper, have a persona, this particular segment, this person in this context is going to need this, this, and this. And make sure that that journey actually matches across those personas. And that's just like the bare bones. We're just getting started. We're trying to understand.
Yeah, but hold on. That's the bare bones to you.
Yeah.
I just made a mental note. I'm working with my client on their online experience. And if they're listening, they're probably laughing right now because I didn't do that. And I should know better.
Well, I mean, that's the problem. There's so many disciplines, and like I said, 100 different rabbit holes that you can go down. But for the people who are doing it themselves, that's a good place to start. Write it all down on one piece of paper. I always advocate. There's a term in our industry, single source of truth. I first heard about it when we were building design systems for software teams. Everybody on the team can refer to that single source of truth, for example, to find out, what font we're using in a particular context. That single source of truth as a business owner is key. One of the earliest lessons I learned from a boss a long time ago, who was a serial entrepreneur, was to write everything down and keep it in one place. Having that organizational skill is really key. And if you're concerned about the experience that your users are having, if you want them to come back, if that's a priority for you, then you are going to track that process, and you're going to try to keep that process as organized as possible.
That totally makes sense. I mean, the single source of truth, I used to call it, like the brand identity kit and the brand Bible. So when we're confronted with this situation, this is what we always do. This is what we never do.
Yeah.
When you're advertising in the newspaper, this is how big it is. This is what it looks like. You can't stretch the logo like a rubber band. You can't squish it or make it crazy. Fundamental stuff, but it's so funny. We all fall down on the fundamentals. So having, well, I love that term. It's way better than brand Bible because it has no implication of religion. The single source of truth. It'd be a funny thing to pitch in the United States right now, a single source of truth. Um, anyways,
Would indeed.
but
But that's
again, this is something, a single source of truth is something that you can write in a Word document or throw onto a slideshow and go, hey guys, it's pretty simple. When we're in this situation, we act this way. When we meet the person, this is what we do first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. This is what our logo looks like. This is what people expect from us, and this is what we'll deliver every single time. And because people join and they have their own concept of what the truth is, and they run with it, and suddenly the brand appears schizophrenic.
Right.
I think that's pretty fundamental to human-centered design, right? That you're not dealing with a schizophrenic.
Consistency in brand messaging, in aesthetic, in quality of service, those all tie into your human-centered experience design. If you're planning for the experience, for the quality of experience, consistency is certainly key.
So it's a wonderful thing. A one pager. Here is the experience I want my customer to have, from they don't know who I am to they're telling their friends about me.
Absolutely.
Or even beyond, they're subscribing, so they're getting the product again. If it's like a bar of soap or makeup or something like that,
Right.
so write that on a piece of paper. The second thing is a single source of truth. What do we always do? What do we never do? What are our values? What do we not value? What do we look like every time? What don't we look like? That makes sense.
Yeah, one last thought on that, and this is really important because I've actually worked with a lot of small businesses over the years. You can have the best intentions of how you're going to do something. Setting a schedule is really key. If the single source of truth, comes out of, team dynamics, and hopefully you're not always going to be doing everything by yourself, but give yourself the freedom to focus on what you want to focus on. And keeping that single source of truth allows you to have it as a reference. You don't always have to hold it in your head. You can always focus on what it is that you want to do. So, it's been my experience that I've advised a lot of clients online over the years, a lot of small businesses, and they say, I have every intention of writing a blog post every week on my website. Please make sure that I have WordPress. And despite their best intentions, their focus is almost always on that core offering, whether it is, I want to be a tattooist, or I'm going to offer tattooing, I'm going to offer artwork, instruction, I'm going to be a musician, whatever those things happen to be. Business owners tend to focus on their core offering. Give yourself the freedom to have a reference so that you don't always have to have that stuff in your head. And then for teams, it's even more important. If you're graduating from doing everything yourself to bringing on somebody to either help you with social media or to help you manage the experience design, or you actually want to contract a developer to help you manage the skin of your Shopify account, making sure that they have that information is also pretty key to maintain that quality of consistency that we were talking about.
I think a lot of times it comes down to, and I've seen this with many of my clients, it comes down to them assuming that what's in their brain is obvious to everybody else.
Right.
So
we all have that.
They don't bother to write down the stuff. They go, this is so dumb. Of course. Why would I write this down? Nobody else knows. And I bump up against that all the time. Now, one thing that I find very reassuring today is that, as baffling as the technology is that should be enabling us to take our product to a global market or whatever, a market outside of a small town, that stuff, there's so many add-ons, from how do you do an email list? How do you write email campaigns? How do you tie the email campaign back to what you're selling? How do you take them through everything they abandon their cart? All that, there's so many little questions. But what I find reassuring is that if you team up with somebody who works almost like as a general contractor, all the skills that you want, I find that so nice today. All the skills are really at hand. They're not working for a ton of dough. It's not like you have to hire the most expensive person in the world. There's a lot of experts out there in the technology that can help you. So you don't need to go catatonic if you don't have all the answers.
That's
Don't
true.
have, because I see this also. I see entrepreneurs who are killing themselves trying
Yeah.
to figure out a Shopify site.
Yeah.
I recommend them to my Shopify friend who sorts it out for them, so they don't have to kill themselves.
No, 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 no. And I think that as do-it-yourselfers, having just a conversational awareness of what's involved can be enormously beneficial for your relationship if you're dealing with somebody who's a developer, if you're dealing with somebody who's a strategist to help you decide if an email campaign if managing an email list is worth it for you, or if you should be, doubling down on your Twitter engagements.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I have a couple of thoughts about that. And one of the key things that I tell every small business owner now, or any do-it-yourselfer, is you're not just buying a single website, and you shouldn't think of your engagement with your contractors as one-offs. You should think of them as starting relationships, because even if it's a short-term engagement, you contracted somebody to help you make sure that your skin looks the way that it should on your Shopify store. You need somebody that you can consistently go back to. It's very much about relationships at this point, and you should, and it's hard for people to budget. Context coming up again. If you've got an ongoing monthly budget, if you've got revenue coming in, you have to allocate a certain amount, even if you don't spend it, but you have to have it there for those resources on a monthly basis, because it is an ongoing affair. It is, I no longer take on contracts where I'm not going to be managing the results of the work that I do anymore. It's not beneficial for me, and it's not beneficial for the client. We have to see 3, 6, 12 months down the road, are the things that we're doing having an impact in a qualitative and quantitative measurement? And what do we have to do if they're not working? And so that relationship is key for that. We have to be having a conversation every month. We have to put it in the calendar. We have to look at what we're doing. We have to look at the analytics, and we have to have that ongoing relationship. Otherwise, you're probably not going to get where you want to go. Again, because as a small business owner, you're focused on your core offering. You're focused on that core thing that made you want to start a business in the first place. But you have to have a relationship, or you should be working towards having a relationship with somebody on a regular basis who's tracking the success of what it is that you're doing. And it's hard to do.
Okay, so let's talk about tracking success.
Sure.
I mean, to me, the ultimate. I love being able to track everything now. Before, as an ad guy, our biggest problem always used to be, yeah, we made this many impressions with that newspaper ad. And that's why it was so hard for small business people to advertise, because they would take out a newspaper ad and go, did it work? I don't know. That famous John Wanamaker quote, I'm wasting half my ad budget, I just don't know which half. Today, working with this small client, they said, well, what should our measures be? And I go, well, to me, let's go online. Let's drive business online. And the measure is, how much stuff are you selling first? But second, I mean, you want to talk about how many more people are coming there, and how many more people are clicking through so that they're staying engaged. And finally, how much more are you selling? But it can be fairly simple, and it can be a very invigorating experience to watch the chart go up, but it doesn't happen overnight. Talk to me about a timeline when you're working with somebody, saying it's a merchant, they want to go online. How do you manage expectations? You say, we're gonna make this optimal, but it's a process of tweaking and testing to make sure your customers get what they want at every step, and we should start seeing results. And what sort of results should we start seeing?
Oh, well, I would never, in this particular context, I'm not making any predictions,
Yeah.
nor saying what sort of results should be expected.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring it back to human-centered design. One of the key things that we should be tracking is having conversations with our end customers, and making sure that they fit in with the personas that we've defined, and making sure that they fit in, having those conversations at the end of a transaction, having those conversations while they're using the product, if it's a service, if it's ongoing. Those ongoing conversations all tie into what it is that we're tracking. Well, what was your success with this? Did you enjoy the bar soap? That's fantastic. Was it a gift? And did they enjoy it? Yeah, well, I think they enjoyed it. Well, fantastic. let's make sure that we're keeping track of that, and we're making sure that it all ties in with our assumptions, which we want to challenge on a regular basis.
That's interesting. So what you're saying is core to human-centered design is just asking the questions at every step of the way and engaging the audience. I find out that I thought I was selling to 16-year-old boys, but I'm actually selling to 45-year-old women. Huge surprise to me, but let's make hay while the sun shines. Let's ask them why they came, what they found. Might be a revelation. What I'm selling might not be actually what I thought I was selling, you know? That's interesting. Do you find that a lot, that you get surprised by the people who are actually buying, that it's not the people you thought would be?
On every project. Every project is a surprise. Every project has a business owner or a team leader where they have a set of assumptions, and that's where we get started. Remember, context is important. Are we in the middle of a process? Are we just getting started with a process? But the assumptions that we start out with just get the ball rolling, just get the engine moving. And then once we start having those engagements with people, that we can challenge those assumptions. Oh, it turns out, like you said, our actual market, who are going to make up 80% of our profit, is actually this particular persona. It's not the persona that I thought. It's not going to be the walk-in traffic. It's going to be the online sales. It's not going to be the online sales in my local district. It's going to be the online sales in North America. So, yeah.
I imagine that's why you will probably want to be connected with somebody like yourself, because if you're surrounded by just technologists who are just responsible for implementing a certain thing, they make good subcontractors. But if you have a good general contractor who has the wherewithal and the brand chops, and the sort of the strategic and the intuition, they know enough to start interpreting the tea leaves as results start to come in and go, wait a minute, we thought this guy, but in fact that lady, we thought they're buying this, but in fact they're buying that. We thought at this price, but in fact at that price. And it is a process of never done, right? You're constantly tweaking. You don't just put it out there and say, I'm done.
Absolutely. It's never done.
Huh. So bringing this thing back, first of all, after this conversation, I'm obviously going to link you, and you have a presentation that you created that we're going to link as well in the show notes. We'll put it up. Folks, I want you to reach out to Adam if you are in the process of going, I want to sell more stuff. I want to sell it online. How do I avoid just throwing good money after bad and do it right, so that they can start asking you questions, maybe engage you, or maybe just ask you questions. But I think for anybody, the fundamentals is what they have to remember. The one pager on who do I think I'm talking to, what experience do I want them to have all the way through, and a single source of truth. This is who we are. This is what we represent. And then you go to like a general contractor, a creative director like yourself, and say, all right, this is what I want to accomplish. How do we get there? And then look at this as not a sort of a one-off, he's going to do the project, but a starting relationship. And as you make more sales, you just hire a bit of that money every month to pay the general contractor so they can read the tea leaves and get the curve going up quicker. Is that a pretty fair assessment of what a DIYer should do?
Well, that was a magnificent summary of what we've talked about today. Yeah, I would.
Listening skills.
Yeah, you're an excellent listener. I would suggest also, though, I mean, don't look for creative directors as much as looking for strategists who have my benefit is that I've gone through production, I've gone through my own businesses, and and I've advised other businesses. Somebody who has that experience, it doesn't have to be me, though I am giving away a certain amount of free consulting time every single month to people who need it. A strategist is a good person to have a relationship with, so that you have a question, you can pick up the phone and have a conversation. The relationship can be with just the strategist, or the relationship can be ongoing with your production resources who are giving you design, social media consulting, or Shopify feature development, whatever that happens to be. So other than that, I would say your summary was magnificent.
See, the one thing that I would caution people against is jumping into bed too quickly with people who are experts in a particular technology, because it's like saying, I want to build a house. I guess I'm gonna talk to a plumber first.
Hmm.
And I see a lot of people doing that because there's so much advertising and distraction online. Everybody's offering the solution. You should write a blog post. That's not the solution. But so you write a blog post and then you go, oh, my blog post must be shitty because I'm not making a lot of money. Well, it turns out it's only one tiny part of it. The first step should probably talk to somebody who is a step removed from the actual coding and the actual tools, a strategist who can look at how it all fits together and what people you should be pulling into the mix, so that you don't get a ton of shiny things that don't work for you.
I agree
That's a mistake I see a lot of people making.
I've seen it myself.
Awesome, man. Well, I want to thank you. And like I said, folks, I'm going to be linking Adam. You can just click on his name in the show notes, and you can ask him any question. You can engage him. He's your man, the strategist who can help you hone a human-centered experience and make your online or offline presence a whole lot more desirable for people. And that'll help you take it a notch above 99% of the competition, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks for the opportunity, Mark.
Talk to you soon, and make sure you help lots of people.
I will do my best. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.